Hey sinners, I'm Megan.
And I'm Lindsay, and this is Sinners Among Saints.
Hey.
Hello, welcome back.
How is everybody? I hope good.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. How's your week been?
Pretty good. It's my anniversary today, so
Yay, happy anniversary.
Thanks.
It's my sister's anniversary today, too.
Oh, special.
They've been married 11 years, so shout out to Amanda and Greg.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. That's awesome. Yeah, we today is like the busiest day of the year for Cody at work, so it's like also I don't know, kind of a terrible day to have an anniversary, but it's just how it happened, so whatever.
I feel like, I don't know, and maybe it's just us, but when we have our anniversary, we always celebrate on the weekend.
Yeah.
No matter what day it falls on.
Yeah.
Just because it's easier.
Yeah. That's us too. I was like, didn't really care too much. I went to work today. He works today. Like, wasn't a big deal. We'll plan something eventually. You know, we'll do our thing. But, so we do have some exciting news.
Very exciting.
We started a Patreon.
Yay!
So, give us your money.
Eventually, we'll create some new tiers, but we started with just one tier to see how it goes.
Yep.
So,
and we'll try to give you like some extras, you know, for the donations, but it would be ever so helpful.
yeah. So we're for sure going to do an extra full episode a month with your Patreon subscription.
Yep.
And then we're going to do, because we are going to start getting some merchandise at some point. And when we get that, you'll get first access to all of the merchandise. And then we'll do 10% off of an item.
Yes.
Every month.
Yep. And, you know, just know that any donations kind of just go back into the podcast because we do purchase like all of the equipment. We do all the editing. We do all of it ourselves. And so any donations are greatly appreciated.
Greatly appreciated.
So.
And you can also hit us up with episodes that you want done.
Yeah. Yeah. We would love suggestions on episodes.
Yeah.
So.
And we're also going to start trying to do episodes kind of around the world and in different continents.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked about how we want to do that. So even if you're not in Utah and you want to throw us a case and become a Patreon, we would be happy to cover other states, other continents.
Absolutely.
Kind of everywhere. So if there's certain cases that you want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that there's cases that I want to research that are outside of Utah, just, you know, some cool ones that I've seen. So, yeah, any suggestions, anything we would love. Helps take a little bit of the legwork off of finding cases.
Yeah,
for
it's
us
true.
too.
It's so true.
So, I did have one thing I thought was kind of interesting. I was at the gym yesterday, and I saw that Texas had executed one of their death row inmates. And I guess for us, it's kind of weird because we have like 7 death row inmates, and that's it.
Yeah.
And Texas obviously is a much bigger state, but this is like the 3rd execution this year, which surprised me because ours are so far apart.
Like years apart.
Yeah. I mean, our last one, I think, was Ronnie Lee Gardner, and that was
2010, right?
Yeah. So it's been,
That's crazy.
It's been quite a while. And so it was interesting. And we looked it up just to see, and they have one more execution plan this year. And then it was like 6 already scheduled for next year.
January. There was like a couple in February.
Yeah, a couple in March and one in September.
Like, it was nuts. We were like, what?
Yeah. And I guess we have to.
They're just like cleaning out the row in Texas, man.
Yeah. We just have to remember, I guess, like we're a much smaller state.
Yeah.
I was like, when I saw it on the news, I was like, they've already executed 3 people.
I know,
what's happening?
Whoa.
But that's probably...
And I don't know how many, like, prisons they have there, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we have one.
Yeah, that's
So-
true. Yeah, we have 1 prison.
They probably have a whole lot more.
1 set of death row inmates. And so,
Yeah.
for us, I was like, why are they executing everybody?
Yeah.
But maybe that's just normal. But it was interesting, and we kind of read about the case a little bit, and
Yeah.
there's some controversy about whether or not he should have been on death row, whether or not he was really mentally stable enough, if he should have
this
even
is the
been...
one that they just executed.
Yeah,
is the one
Tracy
we're talking
Beatty.
About, so.
And they, talk about whether or not he should have even been eligible for capital murder. And so there's kind of a lot of controversy with his case. And when you read about it, it's kind of like, I don't know, it just always scares me a little bit that, we get it wrong sometimes.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, you don't want to kill
More
someone
often
who
than
isn't guilty
than we want to, that I would like to admit that gets done wrong, and for an execution, like, I think it goes case by case for me as to whether or not, but there are people that I am okay with them being executed.
Absolutely.
And so, but then you read about his and it's like, ooh, I don't know. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
It's really hard to, like, say,
yeah,
I don't know if I was on a jury if I could say, yeah, this person deserves to die, because, I mean, unless it's, like, clear cut, they absolutely did it, not a shred of doubt in your mind, that would be hard to put somebody to their death.
I mean, like, Arthur Gary Bishop, I was totally okay with him being, like, on death row, child murderer, fully admitted it, that kind of stuff. I'm like, sure, yep, that's, to me, you don't deserve to live anymore. But this Tracy Beatty just looks, I don't know, it's kind of iffy.
Yeah.
But, people can fake mental illness too, because that's, it's not like cancer where you have the numbers and you have, like, the actual, like, data. It's just kind of going based off of symptoms, and people
it's like
can
Mark hacking. Like, he knew,
people can
he
act
knew what
crazy.
to say, and
absolutely, people can act crazy, and so it's hard. I think some people are just that unstable that they will do, anything to get their sentence, like, reduced or their penalty taken down.
Yeah,
so
I agree completely.
it was interesting, but so
I know I kind of want to look a little bit more into that one.
I would like to read a little bit more about, like, his case. All I know is that he killed his mom.
Yeah.
But he lived in the house. It was so weird.
It was so weird.
They charged him with capital murder because they said that he burglarized the home, but I'm like, he lived there. So
we were like,
can you burgle your own home? Like,
is that
and they're saying that he entered without permission. I'm like, but it's his house.
He lived there.
So
it's not like he had moved out and his mom was living there. It was like, he lives there.
And they went based off of, like, a neighbor saying she heard the mom say that he had to move out.
It's just weird.
It's a really weird case. And so not very often do I feel very uneasy about like an execution, because usually you're like, oh yeah, seems kind of cut and dry, but that one was definitely interesting.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what is happening in Texas right now. So if my Texas friends want to hit me up, Katie, let me know. Yeah, anybody that has, like, some insight or just, kind of close to home type things, or anyone's opinion. It's always nice to hear. It is nice to hear. As long as you're nice about it. And we would like to get some more chat going on our pages. So get on there and tell us your opinions or feelings or whatever. Yeah. Wishes and dreams. Yeah. Your vision board. Wants and hopes. Whatever. All the things. How much you loved donating to our Patreon. So we're channeling the David cult. Yes. And, all of their... it's all going to happen. Uh-huh. Yeah. Putting it out. We're manifesting it, putting it into the universe. That's right. All right. All right. Well, this next case it's a little different than what we've covered so far. So this case is not a murder. The person doesn't die. So we're just going to start out there. It's more of a case about, like, incredible police work and perseverance and survival instead of murder. I had no idea. That's awesome. Yeah, which I thought was kind of a nice change. Yeah, because so all I did was I saw her notes and I saw the names and I have no idea who they are. So yeah, I had never heard of this case either. Someone from my work, Lisa, gave me this case to cover, and I learned a whole lot about this. So
That's awesome. I'm excited.
it is definitely an interesting case, though. So this is the case of Tiffany Mead and Kristopher Ertmann. So Tiffany and Chris met on a dating app in 2007 when Tiffany was a senior in high school. And I think she was 18, but she may have only been 17. I couldn't find it like a definitive age for her when they met. But at the time, Chris was 20 years old, and he was in the U.S. Army and was actually serving in Iraq.
Okay.
So the two began dating and just 6 weeks later eloped. So it was like a whirlwind romance.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine eloping somebody after 6 weeks.
No. And in Utah, we are known for like quick marriages.
Yeah.
But 6 weeks is even a little bit quick.
Yeah.
For Utah.
And an elopement, which is also not super common.
Right.
But shortly after they got married, Tiffany became pregnant and gave birth to a little boy. And I'm keeping the little boys' names out of this story, so I'm just going to call them Boy 1 and Boy 2. But about 2 years later, they have their second son.
Okay.
And after finishing, I got fishing on the mind apparently, after finishing his time in Iraq, Chris returned home to be with his family, but he had become a lot more distant and aggressive and had developed this really bad temper.
Okay, wait. So he was deployed in Iraq when they met.
Uh-huh.
Then he came home.
He came home.
They eloped, and she must have got pregnant pretty quick, right?
And then he left.
Then he went back to Iraq?
Yep.
Oh,
and
man.
then, so he was deployed like several times within this period.
Okay.
And then he came back. She got pregnant again. And then when he finally finished completely, he didn't re-enlist in the Army.
Okay.
Got done with his employment, came home for good.
Okay.
And that's when they noticed a big change in him. Like, you hear about this a lot with people returning from the military.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just have, like, all these emotional outbursts, and he was very, very quick to become angry and just had a really, really bad temper. And from everything that Tiffany says, he was never physically abusive towards her, but very, very emotionally abusive and very manipulative.
Okay.
And she was really fearful in their relationship that it was gonna go to the next level. Like, he would throw things and hit walls and all of that. So to me, that's always really scary because you never know when that's going to turn to an abusive relationship physically.
Generally, it is a precursor to the physical.
So she's really fearful, doesn't know what he would try to do if she ever tried to leave him. And she's got these two little boys.
Yeah, well, and she's young, too.
Mm-hmm. She's really young. So she's also afraid to leave because financially, she's been a stay-at-home mom. Chris kind of is the one that's always supported them. So she doesn't have a job. Daycare is expensive. She doesn't know if she can make it on her own, which, of course, Chris reminds her, like, every chance that he gets. Like, you're not going to be able to do this without me. So that she won't leave.
Right.
So, she just ends up staying, like we hear too often, because she is afraid of what will happen if she leaves, and she is afraid of how it's going to affect the kids as well. But in 2012, after 5 years of marriage and years of abuse, she finally gets up the courage and leaves him. And she moves her boys in with her parents and starts divorce proceedings. And Chris was really kind of a quiet guy. Like, because you can actually get on his Facebook page still. He doesn't make like a lot of posts before all this happened, but after she leaves, he starts, and I think we all know this type of relationship where as soon as they get in a fight, then all of a sudden these cryptic messages start coming on, and how, I want you back, and you broke my heart, and, all of those types of things. So that's kind of what he does, but he starts posting poems and poetry. He does not write any of these. They're all from somebody else from what I could find.
He's just feeling it very emotional.
Right. But the first one was posted on October 25th, 2012. And I'm going to read this one.
Okay.
So it says, "It never really hit me on the day you turned away. You left me with a goodbye, yet I had so much more to say. With all the time you gave me, it's you I never thought I'd lose. It's you I did confide in. I did not think I had to choose. Now I see how good it was, how much your love meant to me. It was you all along, and I was so blind not to see. Some days we had our fights, some nights we talked forever, but how you were my best friend is the only love I can remember. I can admit I'm wrong to you, and I hope you hear my heart, and if you know the real me, you'll know it's wrong we're apart. I hope you know I love you and miss my one true friend.
Does it say where these have come from?
No. And there's like several of these. I am not going to bore you with any of those because gross.
It's very rhymey. It's very junior high,
right.
Like romance.
That's what I thought. I was like, it just seems like very immature.
Yeah, it's definitely, and
not
whoever
really
wrote it,
deep.
Not bagging you, but
yeah,
it definitely seems like it was a younger person, much younger person.
And all of the poems are just like this. So, as you can see,
to him.
Right, he's not wanting the divorce. He really is trying to get Tiffany to come back. And he ends up actually stalking and harassing her for months and months. But she's basically like, I've had enough of your shit. I'm not dealing with this anymore. And she does not go back. She's starting to feel like it was going to affect the kids. And she's this really great mom, and her boys are like her entire world. Mm-hmm. So she's like, nope, I did the hard part. I'm not going back. Which kudos to her, because a lot of women aren't able to stay away when they go to the, in a bad situation like that and they leave. A lot of them go back, and it takes several times to get out of an abusive relationship for most women. So I'm glad that she got out and, closed that door. And she's like, nope, I don't care what you say. Mm-hmm. I can do this. So she even starts like going to night school. She's got a job. She starts dating this new guy, and Chris just continues to stalk her and get crazier and crazier.
Really quick side note: have you watched I Am a Stalker on Netflix?
I've watched one episode.
I just binged it this last week, and it's insane.
Yeah, I've only watched the first episode.
Sorry,
and I want to watch the rest.
Yeah.
Because it is nuts.
So it makes me want to do some stalking stories because I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, I think we totally should.
Yeah,
I do.
It's insane. But anyway.
Yeah. And oftentimes stalking leads to other things.
Absolutely.
So Chris is paying child support for his sons, and the two arranged to meet up on July 23rd, 2013, so that Chris can give her a check for child support. And Tiffany tells people later on that he had told her to come alone to meet him, and is like very adamant. Like, don't bring anybody with you. Don't bring the kids. You need to be alone. Which for me, I'm like,
red flag.
Hello, giant red flag.
Yeah.
And I probably would have said, okay, I will. And then I would have brought like an entire freaking army.
Yeah.
But, maybe that's just us. I don't know. But she texts him back and says she doesn't have a sitter and would have to bring their youngest son, who at the time is 2 years old. And at this point, when he finds out that she's bringing their son, he changes the meeting location to like an isolated park.
Okay.
Which again, to me, another red flag.
Yeah, super weird.
So, like, never go meet somebody in a remote area, especially if they just told you to come alone.
Yeah.
Because shit's gonna go down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wrote in my note, have people try and control the environment as much as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
And this goes for online dating, too, because there's been a lot of cases in Utah of online dating turning pretty bad.
Yeah, and I did meet someone at a park once. It was not like empty though, and it was in the middle of the day.
Which is better, but when you told me this, I was like, Megan.
I did. I was probably not the smartest.
Yeah, well, we all make those mistakes. And again, this is not me saying that this is in any way what happens next, in any way Tiffany's fault.
No.
At all.
No, it's just a good reminder for all of us, because like I've done the same thing, and just you sometimes just need that reminder that like
Yeah.
even people you had kids with, people that you were married to, that you seemed to like you would even though she left the relationship, I'm sure she never thought he would try anything
And
or
do something.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important because she kind of mentions in some interviews that she had like this instinct to not do that, but she didn't follow it because she needed the money.
Right.
And like you just said, she doesn't think anything's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think it's just important to like listen to your instincts. If something is telling you something's off,
yeah,
just follow your gut.
Yes.
It's okay to be rude. It's okay to say no.
Right.
All of those things.
Yeah.
Anyways, but the two meet up and Tiffany gets out of the car and leaves her son in his car seat. And as soon as she gets close to Chris, he kind of grabs her in a bear hug and is face to face with her, like looking at her in the eyes, and pulls a knife from his pocket. And while staring into her eyes, which I'm sure, like wide with fear, I'm sure she's freaking out at this point, he says, "Don't scream," and slits her throat. So he started on the left side of her throat and drags the blade all the way across her throat, stopping just shy of her right carotid artery. And I know you're like, okay, wait, you said she survived. So yes, she does survive. But this was a literal attempt on her life. Like this is a deep cut. She starts gushing blood all down her chest. And she's trying to grab the wound and apply pressure, but he still has her in this bear hug. And she tells him that she's starting to get dizzy at this point due to blood loss. And this manipulative piece of shit opens the car and allows her to sit. And then he basically is like telling her he wants to get back together with her and will only allow her to call 911 if she agrees to stop the divorce proceedings and get back with them.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, so like you could try so many different things, right? There's so many
I know how to win
options,
her back.
Right? Like
I'll slit her throat. That should win her back.
1,000%. That's what every girl wants, right?
That's love.
Like you could offer to go to anger management. He could have offered to go to counseling. Maybe even some flowers.
And does he not think
right?
that in that moment, too, she would say anything so that she could call 911?
Right.
Like, sure, I'll come back to you. I'll do whatever you want.
Right. I mean, at this point, I would say literally anything to get out of this situation.
Sorry. Good heavens. I always hit my microphone.
So, but he decides the best course of action, of course, is to scare the living shit out of her, bring her really close to her death, dangle her life in front of her as like a bargaining chip. Well, I can't talk.
Or bargaining.
Or a bargaining chip.
That's even more important than a bargaining chip.
Right? And all of this is happening while their son, who's 2, is chilling in the back seat in his car seat.
I mean,
are you freaking kidding me?
The thing is, I feel like with people sometimes is they feel like kids at that age are just like, they're so little. They're not going to notice that they're not people. And maybe this kid won't remember it.
I hope not.
But if like he witnessed it, it could still cause trauma.
Oh yeah.
As he gets older, and he may never know like why.
Yeah.
Maybe not remember.
Or maybe he'll block out some things, but your mind and your memory are a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
So, of course, Tiffany, like us, is a fighter and wants to get help. So she agrees to get back with him and then begs him to call 911 and get her some help. But before he will do anything, he looks at her and says he has to seal it with a kiss.
Oh my God.
You have to seal this with a kiss. He leans down and kisses her while blood is literally still spurting out of her neck. Like, what is wrong with this guy?
In the hell?
Yeah. So he says they need to drive somewhere. So after he kisses her, he gets in the car, tells her they need to drive somewhere because they're at this remote park. And he's like, I don't know that they'll be able to find us here. So They get in the car and they drive to a less remote place, and then they call 911. And Tiffany tells him she'll do whatever she wants, or he wants, just please get her help because she really doesn't want to die. So they call 911, and I wanted to just play the 911 call.
Okay.
Address of your emergency.
I'm in front of Davis High School.
Okay, what's going on there?
I tried to commit suicide. My neck's bleeding. I need help quick.
What's your name?
Tiffany Mead.
Do you still have the knife with you?
No, I threw it out the window.
How much are you bleeding?
A lot. My shirt is soaked. I can feel it squirting.
Is anybody with you, Tiffany?
Yeah, my husband and my son.
Okay, I talked to him. Do you have a dry, clean cloth that you can apply pressure to her neck?
I got my shirt.
Or apply pressure to it? Do you know why she did this?
I don't know.
You let me know when an officer shows up.
Can we see one?
Wave your arms and honk your horn.
That is insane.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to hear a little bit, but you can hear that Tiffany calls and says that she committed suicide, or she tried to commit suicide, and that she is bleeding everywhere. And they ask Chris if he has a clean cloth, and he says, I have my shirt.
Yeah.
So he does take off his shirt and apply pressure, and then the ambulance gets there. So when the ambulance shows up, there is blood everywhere. Like, I will try and post pictures of the car scene, but it is, I mean, there's blood everywhere. It's pooled all over the seat. It's literally everywhere.
I'm surprised. I mean, she sounds pretty with it on the call, and I'm surprised that she sounds like that with it.
Yeah.
With the amount of blood loss I'm sure she's had.
Yeah. And you'll be shocked because I'm going to get into how much blood she actually loses, and it is insane that she is still alive. So they get Tiffany in the ambulance, and she looks over and sees her son and Chris, and immediately becomes terrified and tells one of the officers, like, I don't know, I guess seeing her son and Chris, like, kicks in mommy mode instinct for her. And she calls one of the officers, Bob Thompson, and says, quote, keep him away from me. He did this to me, and save my baby. So the ambulance then takes her away. But she also, while she's in the ambulance, calls her mom on the way to the hospital and tells her mom, Chris just tried to kill me. You need to come get the boys.
Yeah.
And she says at this point, once she makes that call, it's like she knows as soon as she knows her kids are going to be safe, and that her mom knows what happens, she, like, is at peace with dying. She's like, I just needed to stay awake and alert long enough to tell somebody to not send my kids home with Chris.
I got, like, chills all over my body.
So she literally, like you just said, how she sounds so with it and how it's so crazy. Like, she was just on adrenaline mode and wanted to make sure those boys were safe and not with their dad. So at the hospital, the staff notice how severe and deep the wound is. And this is not really a typical way that someone tries to commit suicide, especially females.
Right.
So often if you try and cut your own neck, you just don't go deep enough to do much harm. But that's not the case here. So the wound is really bad, and she's lost a ton of blood. So they said that they estimated about 3.5 liters of blood.
My hell.
So just to kind of put that into context, the average human body has about 4 liters of blood. So this means that if that number is accurate, she lost 70% of her blood supply.
How is she even still, like, functioning?
And the hospital staff was the same way. They were like, they didn't think she was going to survive.
Yeah.
And at this point, she's passed out. Like, when she gets to the hospital, she's not with it.
Yeah.
She literally stays with it long enough to make those calls and tell the police, and then she's gone.
That's insane.
So you can typically die if you lose more than 2 liters of blood.
Okay.
And so, I mean, this is, like, extensive.
Yeah.
And I will also post pictures of the wound after it gets closed, because you can see, like, it's, like, across her entire neck.
Oh.
So back at the scene with the car, the police are trying to figure out what to do now, because you have this woman who called saying that she attempted suicide.
Right.
But then when they get there and show up, she's like, nope, my husband did this to me.
Yeah.
And like forced me to call you. So Sergeant Thompson started looking over the scene more closely, and he notices blood on the outside door of the car, which seems really weird because it made it sound like she did this while sitting in the driver's seat.
Okay.
And that's where the majority of the blood is.
Uh-huh.
So how is there blood spray on the outside of the door?
Yeah.
And there's no blood on the ground. Like, it's just on the car door,
Yeah.
not on the ground. So if it happened outside, you would expect to see blood spray on the ground or like a pooling of blood.
Right.
So Sergeant Thompson is just like, nah, this is not adding up. The other odd thing is there was no knife recovered. And so in the call, it says she threw it out the window.
Right.
Later, Tiffany tells them about the park where she was, like, where the actual cutting happened. And when they find the second scene, it starts to add up a little bit more. But then it's like, okay, so she lost all the blood there, then drove herself. Like, they just can't figure out what is happening.
Yeah.
And at this point, Chris is still denying the whole thing and telling them that Tiffany did this to herself and has been suicidal and is even on antidepressants.
Okay.
Which is true because she's taking antidepressants and he knows that. So he's using that as like leverage.
Yeah.
So Chris is being interviewed and is in custody and sends up even more red flags because when they ask him about what happened, he claims that he doesn't remember exactly what happened. And then he's like, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. Like,
okay.
What? Like, you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it literally just happened like a couple hours before. There's no way that you can't recall any of the events that took place.
Right. That's like what my children say that. Like when I ask them about like just mundane things, like what'd you do at school or what's this? I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. Like,
right.
And I'm just like, okay, well, whatever. But like you just like there's a potential murder scene or suicide or whatever. You don't just get to be like, you know what?
Yeah, I don't really feel like talking about this.
I'm a little
right
tired.
now.
I don't want to talk about it.
Can we change the subject?
Yeah.
Yeah. He also doesn't ever ask how Tiffany is, if she survived, doesn't ask about the kids or where they're at, who they're with, if they're scared, nothing. So Chris is eventually arrested and charged with attempted murder.
Okay.
And this is just, unfortunately, the beginning of this story.
What?
Yeah. So at this point, he said, it's like a he said, she said situation, which is so hard to prove in court.
Absolutely.
And the police are trying to find any evidence, and they try and go recover the knife, which they think Chris, like based on what Tiffany tells them, thinks that Chris threw it out the window into this deep ravine on the way from the park to where they ended up. They were right outside Davis High School.
Okay.
So they get metal detectors, they get cadaver dogs, anything they can think of, but to no avail. They never find the knife. And with the weapon missing, they need something else.
I swear, like, people try to, like, get rid of weapons, like, and do all these things, and they, like, appear.
Yeah.
And this person's just, I'm sure, like, on a whim, like, tossing it.
Just tosses it in a ravine.
And somehow they're like, I don't know where the hell it went.
Never finds it.
That's insane.
And it's never found. Ever.
Really? Never.
Never.
So crazy.
About a month into the investigation, the judge also receives this mysterious letter from a woman named Mary Olson. And Mary is claiming to be a really good friend of Tiffany's and says that Tiffany is lying and that she just can't sit here and let an innocent man sit in jail.
Okay.
Yeah. The letter claims that Tiffany was suicidal, did this to herself, and was just trying to frame Chris.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but of course, like, with all of this he said, she said, they have to follow up on this lead.
Yeah.
But they can never find this Mary Olson person. And they asked Tiffany about it, and she's like, I don't even know anyone named Mary.
Yeah.
So they can't prove that Chris was involved in the mysterious letter, but they're like, we also can't find anyone named Mary Olson.
Yeah. Who's sticking up for,
Yeah. Well, and it's just so weird to me because, like, it's almost like sending an anonymous letter.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. You try to make it not anonymous by saying Mary Olson, but then this Mary Olson and the address that the letter came from doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Right, and it's all sticking up for you.
Yeah. So the other big issue in this case is trying to prove intent. Because at this point, basically everyone thinks that they can prove Chris did it to Tiffany. But the defense could argue that he was just trying to scare or manipulate her and not actually trying to kill her. Because he did let her call 911, and he even gave her his shirt to apply pressure to the wound.
I don't care what anybody thinks. If you try and slit somebody's throat, you're trying to kill them.
Right?
There's no, like, just trying to scare you.
Yeah.
Like, slitting someone's throat is trying to kill them.
And that deep.
Yeah.
But the cops are worried that the defense will argue that he didn't know how deep he was going, like that he meant just to make, like, a small cut to scare
it's only
her.
a flesh wound.
Right? A mere flesh wound. And so if that's the case, then it would be, instead of attempted murder, it would be aggravated assault. And if it was aggravated assault, he could be out within a year.
Right.
So, and obviously that's not acceptable.
No.
So Sergeant Bob Thompson's partner at the time is this, like, amazing human and detective. Her name is Jen Daly. And so she's basically like, I am not willing to accept the possibility of this guy walking so easily. So with no other leads and no more evidence, she's racking her brain trying to figure out what to do. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to go back and listen to all of his jail phone calls and visits.
Oh, yeah.
And see if he ever says anything that we can kind of follow up on.
They always do.
So he only ever called his parents. And I guess every phone call that he has with his dad reminds him that they're being listened to and be very careful what you say.
Yeah.
So, like, literally, that's how they start every conversation.
His dad knows he's a dum-dum.
Yeah. And Chris was very, very careful. He is very careful to not say anything.
Okay.
So Jen keeps listening. And even when others thought that this was like a dead end and she was wasting a lot of time, she listened to every call this guy made and watched every visitation he had.
Good.
And after 3 months of this, 3 months, just imagine the hours that went into that.
Yeah.
She gets frustrated and gives up. She's like, it's not
Nothing.
going anywhere.
Yeah.
He's not saying anything. He's being super careful. But in her gut, she just gets this nagging feeling. And she just feels like she needs to start listening again. So she does. And she starts listening again and again and again and just keeps it up. And finally, on December 2013, this is about 5 months in, she gets a break. So he calls his dad and tells him to find one of his friends named Raymond on Facebook.
Okay.
And he says, find this guy on Facebook, have my brother help you, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
And let him know that I'm in prison. And that's all he says. So that was the first mention, though, of anyone. So Jen jots this name down.
Yeah.
Not really sure what to do with it yet.
Right.
And then additional calls come, and he keeps asking his dad if he's been able to reach this guy. So it seems like it's really important to him.
Right.
So Lieutenant Daly decides that they have to find this guy. So they figured out, after a little bit of research, that he was another inmate that was in the same cell block as Chris. So they bring Raymond in and ask him if he knows Chris Ertmann and if he's ever said anything about the incident that happened with Tiffany.
Yeah.
And at first, Raymond is like, I'm no snitch. Like, what happens in our cell block stays in our cell block.
Yeah.
And Lieutenant Daly just looks at him and says, listen, there's a time in life to stand up for what's right.
Yeah.
And this is your time. like, make the right choice.
Right.
And so he thinks for a minute, and then he just starts to spill.
Nice.
Which is so good.
Yeah.
But he tells police that Kris admitted that he was the one that slit Tiffany's throat. And he also tells them that before he got out, Kris gave him a handwritten letter to copy once he got out that sounded an awful lot like the one that the mysterious Mary Olsen had written. And it's not the same letter. This was a separate letter.
Okay.
But what's great about this is he tells them that he still has the letter somewhere and agrees to find it and bring it in. And later he does, and they are able to match Kris's handwriting to the letter. So it's like perfect. But while Raymond is being so open and talking to the police, Sergeant Thompson then asks him, so has Kris ever asked you to do anything to Tiffany?
Yeah.
And this question was like not something they were expecting to ask. It just sort of came to him in the moment. And everyone freaks out when Raymond's like, yeah, he asked if I had any connections to anyone who could kill Tiffany.
Oh.
So now,
I mean, don't they ever, they always talk to the cell, like, whoever you're
Always.
in jail with or
Right?
prison, because everybody always tells the whole story to someone. Like, you gotta brag about the shit you've done.
Yep.
And they're gonna turn on you.
And especially in prison, it's like street cred or something. Like,
Yeah. They always spill the beans, and then whoever you're telling it to, like, they're going to tell on you. They're going to eventually, like, whatever, the cops are going to need something, you're going to need something, and
Right.
they've got this big thing that they can do.
and it's usually like well, I'm still in jail. Hey, I've got this info. Can you help me
Yeah.
out? Like, I'll scratch your back. You scratch my
Yeah.
back.
Or you just have a good,
But this guy's out. He's,
good set of morals, like
Yeah.
little Raymond here.
Yeah. So good job, Raymond.
Right?
But now the police are starting to get really excited because they can prove that Kris hired a hitman
Yeah.
to kill his wife, and they can charge him with solicitation to commit murder, which will land him in prison for much longer.
Oh, there we go.
So
Longer than murder?
longer than attempted murder.
Wow.
Yeah. So Raymond seems pretty credible at this point, and Kris even told him that he could pay $25,000 for the job, which is a significant number because several months before the incident, Kris's bank, which I need to figure out where he banks because his bank messes up and deposits $25,000 into his account on accident. And before they can correct it, Kris withdrew it, that exact amount, and nobody ever knows where it was. They have no idea what he did with it. So
And
the fact that he's like, I've got $25K, I can pay you to commit this murder is like another like just connection to the puzzle.
And he never has to pay it back? Like, the bank's just
Apparently, if your bank makes that mistake
and you've spent the money,
get rid of that money before, you know,
I'm going to check my bank account a little more
Right?
often now.
then apparently you don't have to pay it back because it was their mistake.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you did anything to make it deposited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So they convinced Raymond to go meet with Kris. And during the meeting, Raymond tells Kris that he still has the letter and wants to know if he should send it. And Kris is like, yep, go ahead and mail the letter. And then I want to kind of read you this conversation.
okay.
So Raymond says, you remember that work you needed done, though? And Kris is like, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I've got that guy, bro. And Kris says, I can't do it at this time. No. Raymond says, should I negotiate a little bit and see what I can do or what? And Kris is like, no, let's just wait on that. So then it's like, damn it. Because he said not to go through with it, so now they can't charge him.
Mm-hmm.
So now they think that they're done and they're not going to have a case for solicitation. until another informant, who's also in jail with Chris, comes forward and says that he's got some info that he wants to trade for help in his case. And this guy is known to do this, though, and he's known to always, like, go back on his word, or once he gets what he wants, then he's like, nope, I want more. Like, it's always like, I want more, before he fulfills his end of the bargain.
Okay.
And so the police are like, nope, if you have info, you can just tell us, but we are not helping you out.
Yeah.
So we'll call this man Jason because it doesn't list his actual name.
All right.
So Jason decides to tell Lieutenant Daly that he knows what he knows. And he says that Chris has been asking about a hitman for his wife. So this is the second person that they've heard this from. And Lieutenant Daly immediately starts to worry because Jason is a much worse dude than Raymond and actually has connections.
Yeah.
Unlike Raymond. Like, Raymond really doesn't know. He's, like, very petty criminal.
Okay.
And this guy, Jason's, like, a bad guy. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, if he's known to, like, tell lies and go back on things, he's obviously in prison or jail a lot.
Yeah. So if anybody can make this actually happen and get Tiffany killed, it's him.
Okay.
So they decide to set up a sting with an undercover cop to pose as the hired hitman. And this cop is referred to as Jim. So Jim shows up to the prison and he starts talking to Jason.
Okay.
And it's kind of an odd thing because the prison, it's not like when you think of prison or when you think of like movies where people go in and visit, or a jail, I guess this is jail at this point, not prison, but they're like in one little room and they've got the glass between them and nobody else is like behind them.
Yeah.
This is like the actual, it's almost like their rec room, and you can come to the window and talk to people, but everyone else is in the background.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not like this private meeting area or anything like that. So during the first meeting, Chris is kind of just like watching over Jason's shoulder and then hands him a piece of paper, which he shows to Jim. And on the piece of paper, it's Tiffany's address. And it's like her real address. So the police, so at this point, it's basically like he hands the paper to Jason. Jason shows him the address, and Jim's like, okay, I got it. So the plan now is that he's going to go scout out the area. He's going to take pictures of Tiffany and then confirm with them that it's the right target. Okay. So he doesn't kill the wrong person. Right? So the police have to go to Tiffany and they have to tell her now for a second time that Chris has taken out a hit on her.
Yeah.
And she's terrified.
Oh, I would be too.
She's like, because she knows that he did it once. Now she knows he did it twice.
Yeah.
And that this guy has more connections. So they tell her, like, listen, we're setting up this sting. They tell her the whole operation. And she agrees to pose for some pictures. So they take some pictures of her, like, carrying groceries in from her car, going in and out of the house, just random things like that.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know, like, she's freaked out because she doesn't know if Chris has hired anyone else that she may not know about. Like, these are the two that she knows about, but who knows how many people he's actually put a hit, out on. So, or I said that wrong, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
So Jim takes the pictures back to the prison and goes to meet with the informant Jason first. And Jason, at this point, pulls his usual shenanigans and refuses to cooperate and threatens to tell Chris everything about the sting unless he's released from jail.
Oh.
So they immediately move Jason out of the cell block so he has no further contact with Chris. But they don't know if he's already told Chris anything or given him a heads up. So, and remember, at this point, it's Jim and Jason that are talking.
Okay.
He hasn't actually spoken to Chris.
Okay.
So they're like, well, let's just try it. Let's have you go in, see if Chris will even talk to you and see what happens.
Yeah.
So Jim meets with Chris and is just kind of praying that this is going to go well.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's just unsure if Chris is even going to meet with him. So he just kind of sits there and waits. And eventually, Chris comes in and sits down and picks up the phone. And then I'm going to read this next conversation again.
Okay.
So Jim says, "What's up, man?" Chris, "Not much. How are you?" Jim, "I took a couple of pictures and I just want to verify with you." So at this point, he holds the pictures up to the glass and shows Chris the pictures.
Uh-huh.
Jim, "Do you see that?" Chris, "Yeah." Jim, "Is that her?" Chris, "Yeah." Jim, "Okay, so what Jason was telling me, was make it happen." Chris, yeah, have fun." Jim, "And you're saying all the way, right?" Chris, "Yeah, have fun." Jim, "Is there a time period? I mean, is there..." Chris, No. Jim, "No?" Chris, "Sooner the better." Jim, "Sooner the better." Chris, "Yeah." Jim, "Okay, I'm thinking about 5K. Does that work?" Chris, "Yeah." Jim, "So just so we are clear, I'm talking about, we're not, there's no way back from it once I do it." Chris, "I know." Jim, "You're good with that?" Chris, Yeah. Jim, "And 5K is good?" Chris, "Yeah." Jim, "Okay, well, I'm planning on taking care of it this weekend." Chris, "Okay." And that's what they need to convict him. So they have to
5,000.
kind of speak in code, so it's
Yeah.
like kind of this
For sure.
weird conversation.
Right.
But yep, 5,000.
I mean, I guess I would not make a good criminal, because if I'm going to be killing someone for someone else,
Right?
like $5,000 is not going to cut it.
No.
Like, I want enough where I can fly to another country and
Right?
be gone forever.
Like even 25,000 to me seems like
Low.
I would not do that.
No.
Like, I mean, not that I would do that for
No, I wouldn't.
a lot of money,
Just-
but
No, but just $5,000 is,
like nothing.
yeah, like,
It's
that's
nothing.
not that much money.
No.
Like,
For someone's life.
yeah.
Yeah.
And to be committing a crime for someone else, like, I don't know. I
And
mean,
like possibly spending the rest of your life in prison.
yeah,
No thanks.
no.
But at this point, they know that they have what they need to convict him. So Lieutenant Daly calls Tiffany and tells her that they got him on tape and that they can prove it. So he will go away for a long time. So
All right.
Chris is charged with aggravated assault, 2 felony counts of criminal solicitation to commit aggravated murder, and 3 felony accounts of obstructing justice. So a plea deal is made, and Chris pleads no contest to aggravated assault, resulting in serious bodily injury, and criminal solicitation to commit aggravated murder, but stated he wasn't in his right mind and that he's not dangerous, claiming that it was from his PTSD from the time in the military and at war.
Okay. Let's
And-
not like downplay what these poor service members actually go through.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, don't come around and be like, I was deployed and because of that I tried to kill my wife.
Right.
Like,
Well, and there's like no evidence that he has any PTSD. He's never been treated for anything like this.
Yeah.
And the judge is basically like, doesn't care about these claims that he makes. And he sentences Chris to 5 years in life for the solicitation to commit aggravated murder and 1 to 15 years for the aggravated assault charge, and then orders the sentences to run consecutively, making this at least 6 years to life in prison.
okay.
So he was up for parole in 2016, and Jen Daly shows up for the hearing. And Tiffany also spoke at the hearing, stating, I wake up every morning wondering if today is going to be the day that Chris will send someone to have fun killing me. I am here again, terrified, And if he's ever released, there's no doubt in my mind he will come for me.
Yeah.
And he will finish what he started. Please help keep my kids safe.
I mean, even 6 to life, like to know that he could get out in that short of a time is ridiculous.
Yep. And that he's already had 1 parole hearing.
Yeah.
Like, it's nuts.
That's insane.
So he was sentenced, I think, in 2008 or 2009. So he served 8 years.
Okay.
And then got his first parole hearing.
Yeah.
And luckily he was denied parole.
Good.
And Jen and Tiffany have, like, kept in contact.
Aww. I love that in cases like this.
Me too. And Jen stated, although I cannot speak at parole hearings, the fact that I'm in the building, I hope is enough to show the parole board that this case is important and that a cop actually showed up to it.
Yeah.
I will never miss one, even if I'm 90 and in a wheelchair or a walker. Somebody will push me in that door.
Oh, how cute.
Yeah. So Tiffany now refers to Jen as her guardian angel, and the two are bonded for life.
Oh.
Chris isn't up for parole again until 2029, and I hope he is never released. Like, I hope he serves life for Tiffany's sake.
Yeah.
Because...
Well, and she didn't even really know him when they got married and had kids.
Right.
I mean, they met online, and, I mean, nothing wrong with that, because that's where I met my boyfriend, but, you know, he was in another country, and then he just, like, comes home in time for them to, like, get married and pregnant, and then leaves, and then pregnant, and, like, they didn't really spend time together, so he might have come home and seemed different, but that might have just been how he was.
Just been him, yeah. And I reached out to a few people who I thought might know Chris to ask, you know, what his personality was before the war. Was this really this big change, or was this how he always was? But I couldn't find anyone who really, like, knew him that well, and his family's just kind of hush-hush.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he was. But Tiffany's doing very well. She got remarried, has another child, and I just hope that she can raise her family and continue to live her life to the fullest extent.
That's just scary, though, because, you know, in these, like, stalking cases, I feel like, from what I've been watching, that once they're kind of been put away, they feel some sense of, like, relief. Yeah. But where he's, like, out soliciting other people, soliciting other people.
We can't talk today. It's been a really long week, you guys. I'm very sorry.
Yeah. It's Friday, and it's late.
And I feel like I stumbled over a lot of words in that one, so.
Anyway, so he's out soliciting murder to just whoever. Like, that would be scary to me, because it's anybody. Anybody could be.
Yeah, well, and who knows? Like, what's to say that he's not gonna do that still at some point?
Right. I mean, he's sentenced essentially to a life sentence. So in his mind, he could just be like, "Oh, I'm not gonna get any more trouble."
Happen to me? Yeah.
So why does it matter? You know?
I just think that would be
scary.
It'd be scary, because then you have to just, like, live your entire life with that knowledge in the back of your brain.
Yeah.
And, like, okay, is today going to be my day?
Yeah.
And that's basically what she says, is, like, every day I'm like, okay, is today the day that he's going to send somebody
it's like
else?
She's in a prison every day. Way worse than the prison that he's in.
Yeah. It's awful.
That's terrible.
So, I do want to mention that there are 2 documentaries on this case. The one that I watched was on Oxygen, and it's called Murder for Hire. Okay. And it's, like, a good series, man. I was watching Oxygen. A few of those. So
I love Oxygen.
The other one is called Hiring a Hitman, and I didn't watch that, though. But I did find some of the conversations I read was from transcripts that I found from their website. Okay. So if anyone wants to check them out, go check them out.
That's awesome. I like the survivor tales.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, even though she's still kind of, like, suffering every day.
And she's literally scarred for life. Like,
right?
She just has this big old cut. Just, like, scar across her neck. Which is, like, a daily reminder.
It is. And then your kids are going to ask about it. Yeah. Like, as they get older. Like, how do you even, I mean, obviously,
sure
like,
everybody does.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like, their dad's in prison, so they know that, like, he's not around. Yeah. But, you know, I'm big on on not bad mouthing like the other parent, you know,
Right.
like, because that affects the kids. But like, how do you deal with
How do
that?
you not-
Like, how do you,
yeah.
you know, like, oh, that's just so terrible.
That's such a tough situation. Like, he's
Yeah.
not just like a shitty dad. He's like, he literally tried to kill you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, this is dad. He did that. Like,
yeah.
that's terrible.
I mean, I'm sure she has to explain herself all the time. Like,
Uh-huh.
because I was thinking about this, if someone came to, like, went in to see their doctor, too, a
Yeah.
lot of people are going to be like, okay, so what happened here?
Yeah.
Because they need to know, like, I mean, a thyroid surgery, it wouldn't be that big.
Right. You're
So
like,
it's
you need
like
a
this
different
weird,
doctor.
like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm
Well,
sure
and-
she has to explain herself all the time.
Yeah, and kids asking, and I mean, even my daughter got a haircut yesterday, and when we were sitting there talking to like the hairdresser lady, and I don't even remember what we were talking about, something about their dad. I think she was asking about the holidays or something. So talking about like what the kids do, and then Nolan out of nowhere is like, "So how come you and my dad aren't together anymore?" And he's never asked that before
Oh,
because he was so little. He was
yeah.
less than 2 when we split up, and I was just like so uncomfortable in the salon, like, oh,
Like, what
you
a
know.
place to bring it up.
Like, you know what, it was really weird, and I was like, oh, it's just because your dad's stinky, you know how he is, like, just try to like throw, like, just take, so he was just like, oh yeah, whatever. So I'm like, what, I don't
I
like,
don't know how to answer
yeah,
this
I'm
question.
like, you know, we're
Yeah.
still good friends, and sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, you know, so like kids ask questions. I'm sure she's had to do that, and that's
Oh, yeah.
terrible that she has to even do that kind of stuff and explain it.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
No.
I really can't.
Well, she sounds like an awesome person, and I hope that she's living like her best life.
Yeah. It seems like she is. It seems like she married like a nice guy this time who's not going to try and kill her. And
I don't even know
they
how
have
you
a-
date after that.
Right?
Yeah,
I would be terrified.
Yeah, I would need some
I'd
like
be like,
serious therapy.
I wouldn't trust anyone.
No.
How could you?
Yeah.
That would be so hard.
Yeah, I can't even
So-
fathom like going through something like that and then having to you don't have to, but like being back in a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people like companionship, and like you want
That's what
You
I
want
mean.
that.
We need that too.
Yeah.
We need some of that as humans.
right.
So, yeah.
Well, that was a good one,
Kudos,
Yeah.
Tiffany.
because next week is not going to be so like survivor friendly. It's a little
There's
more
no
gnarly,
survivors.
so no. So
Well, good. I'm glad I did a little pick me up one.
Yeah. yeah, that was a fun one. I mean, not fun, but like it was a nice breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I do want to do a shout out just to all the veterans, because today is Veterans Day.
Oh, yes.
And I was thinking about it as you were talking, or he was like in the service, and I was like, oh, he didn't say anything.
Yes.
I have lots of people in my life that are close to me that are, you know, service members. Just want to thank you guys for all of your service, for all of your sacrifice, your families, your wives, your kids, everyone
Yes.
that has to, you know, sacrifice for the stuff that you guys do.
Agreed.
And we
Thank you so
yeah,
much.
We appreciate it so much.
And we miss you, Logan.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
forget.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at,
Sinners Among Saints podcast.
and you can send us a Gmail at,
Sinners Among Saints podcast at gmail.com.
and you can tweet us
At capital SAS podcast _22.
and don't forget to check out our Patreon.
Yes.
I put a link for it up on all of our social media.
We are not having strokes today, I promise. Like,
Well, maybe
seriously,
we
I
are.
just feel like I just struggled through that whole episode. So I am sorry.
Yeah.
I will get my shit together for next week.
And if I can figure it out, I'll even like put a link to it like in the notes for the Patreon.
Yeah, perfect.
But technology is not my friend, so
I don't know. You're becoming like really good at I'm actually really impressed
I
with
don't
all
know
the
what people
things
did
you've learned.
before Google, honestly. Like, I don't know how people figured things out. I don't.
Me either.
It's amazing.
Me either. Not
So
at all.
anyway, thanks for listening, everybody.
And remember to keep listening if you want in on the sin.
Bye.
Bye.